Please help support the channel by visiting our Amazon store, affiliate link below. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo, this is 3 Buck Theater, and this is my review of The Gifted, at least the pilot of The Gifted, which is Fox's new X-Men but not really X-Men TV series, and it's one that I've been waiting a long time to see what happens with this thing. When they first announced that they were going to be doing an X-Men show for Fox, like an hour-long drama, I was like, yeah, that seems pretty cool. And then like, oh yeah, but Bryan Singer is going to be involved. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. You know, can't be any worse than X-Men Apocalypse. But if it's anything like the first 2 X-Men movies or X-Men Days of Future Past, I'm definitely on board. But then the kicker came. And that kicker was a person by the name of Matt Nix. Now, if you don't know who he is, that's entirely fine. If you've ever seen any of the 7th season of USA's Burn Notice, that is the dude who created it. Michael Weston is his creation. This show is also his creation. So as soon as I heard Matt Nix was involved, oh dude, I was on board. Like I was totally on board. And then you hear that Bryan Singer is directing the pilot, and those two things coming together make me very hopeful that the show is going to be good, especially given the fact that right now we kind of seem to be at some all-time high in terms of new shows that are dealing with not only comic book themes, but science fiction and things like that. And this, I'm not going to lie, this was awesome. Like, this was, for one, a pilot that felt like not a pilot, which is something you don't get very often. It was a little rough around the edges in some parts, right? It was a little rough around the edges, but ultimately, oh man, had me at the end cursing loudly because it was over and I wanted to see what was going to happen next. It gripped me pretty much from the get-go, and I do believe a lot of that has to do with Matt Nix's producing and show running, as well as him having written the script, because I love the dude's work completely. Even Coby Bell, who played Jesse on Burn Notice, is now in the show as the bad guy, and I am so happy he is now working again. I've loved him in Burn Notice, and I'm glad he's back on this, teamed up with Matt Nix again. So for me, yeah, because that could only mean that somewhere down the road, possibly Gabrielle Anwar, Bruce Campbell, or even Michael Weston himself might pop up, and that would be pretty great. So anyway, this show, if you're unfamiliar with it, essentially is about, it's set in present time, but the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants are nowhere to be found. They didn't say why, we don't know why just yet, and the government has been cracking down on mutants. Now, this is not something that's uncommon for an X-Men story, but this time around, they've been capturing ones that are more criminal, and they've been putting them in detention centers and prosecuting them, and that's kind of where Reed Strucker comes into play, and that's Stephen Moyer, who wasn't, you know, Bill Compton on True Blood for all those seasons, and he is a prosecutor who, you know, basically just prosecutes criminalized mutants and puts them in detention centers, things like that. And that's when we find out his kids, Lauren and Andy, both have powers. Lauren has known for a couple years that she's had the ability to manipulate air and manipulate water and maybe a couple other elements. But her brother Andy, who is a picked on kid in school, ends up getting, you know, gets pushed to his limits, and that causes him to react. And we all know how these things tend to happen. When these reactions tend to play out, stuff gets broken up. And this happened at a high school dance, and he tore apart the whole bathroom, broke the gymnasium, but everyone pretty much knew at this point who the mutant was. And when you know you're a mutant, you're going to have a target on your back in one form or another. And this is basically where the family decides to go on the run. But this does tie into the very beginning of the episode, which has Blink, played by Jamie Chung, on the run from Atlanta PD. She gets intercepted by Thunderbird, Eclipse, and Lorna, and they get away, but Lorna gets grabbed in the process. And this is where we kind of get the introduction to the Mutant Network, as well as the Struckers, and we can already tell that their stories are going to collide at some point in time. But here's the thing. Both of the groups of people are interesting. It's interesting to know more about that side of a prosecutor who goes after mutants, and it's interesting to know more about a group of mutant underground people that aren't led by the X-Men. So it's kind of cool to get both sides of that. And of course, you know, Eclipse wants to break into the jail to free Lorna, who we find out is actually pregnant with this child, which is actually something that Stephen Moyer, or Reed, tried to use as leverage to get Lorna to turn on the Mutant Underground, which I thought was pretty heartless at first. I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a jerk move there, Reed. But then you realize that, like, I don't think he was doing it to be mean. I mean, clearly it's a chip. Clearly he's playing it. but I think legitimately wanted to help her. Because when I first heard of the show, I thought he was kind of like a very, like, not a bad guy, but a very strict, very hardcore prosecutor who, you know, didn't really care about mutants, just wanted to get him off the street if they, you know, things like that. And he had a reputation about him. And then, of course, this happens and that causes him to flip. That actually isn't the case here. He's actually what seems to be a very down-to-earth, loving individual who clearly has empathy, but he's doing this as a job. So to him, it's a job, and he already knows what's going to happen. And this is basically where Sentinel Services come into play. Now, they haven't said if Sentinel Services is a subsidiary of Trask Industries, but I have a feeling they're going to, and that's just going to make me super happy when they do. But this is where Coby Bell comes into play, and he is the leader of Sentinel Services sent over to pick up Lauren and Andy and take them away after the gymnasium incident, which is interesting because when talking about it with Reed, he knows of Sentinel Services basically through reputation only, kind of like the black bag side of the whole government taking on the mutants. And he says that he was working a case where they got involved and they never heard from that particular mutant ever again. So we don't know who the person is who they took. We don't know anything about them, but we know that they're menacing, and we know that they're relentless, and we know that they have a bunch of toys at their disposal. Like, everyone's hanging out hiding at a hotel, and they send Sentinel drones overhead to try to scan for the license plate of the vehicle that they own and everything, or anything else, get visual confirmation, so on and so forth. But the fun comes from when they connect with the underground at an abandoned industrial place at night, which is very Matt Nix, by the way. When I got to that part in the show, I was like, oh, it's an abandoned, there's no one around in an industrial complex at nighttime. Clearly, this is Matt Nix, because that's what he did with Burn Notice in almost every single episode. So it's kind of a trope of his own, but hey, you know what? I'll take it. This is where Sentinel Services show up. They surround Eclipse and the family. Thunderbird and Blink show up, and they try to all escape together. But basically, the Sentinel Services, they drop these little spider drones, or like spider bots that are able to crawl on the walls and crawl on ceilings and basically run up and grab the mutants. They track them down and they grab them like a boot for the leg, like a car boot. And that's when, like a Thunderbird gets grabbed, but Eclipse is able to kind of burn one of them off, but it doesn't actually stop it. It just kind of like pulls off the dead leg, throws it aside, and continues going after him. Blink is able to get them out of there, and at the last possible moment, Reed is shot in the back while trying to escape. They all get through to the other side, and Reed is left there, and that's where the episode ends. And I was, oh my God, I was like, no, damn it, because I was in. Let me just say, for one, aesthetically, the show looks good. Two, the acting was all right. There are a couple rough around the edges parts, but it mostly was with the kids. Other than that, everyone else did a very, very, very good job conveying not only their characters, their character motivations, and emotions. You do get attached to these people within the first 45 minutes. I was surprised at how well this pilot turned out. Now, granted, Bryan Singer did direct this, and Bryan Singer has done a lot of big movies, so you'd think he would be able to bring something like this to life as well as he did. I can just put it to you like this. X-Men Apocalypse? Yeah, that was garbage. That was not a good movie. This is good. He did a very good job. He brought like Days of Future Past level, X-Men 2 level type stuff to this. So that's how I view that. And I really, really liked it. I liked the characters. Blink's, her contacts are a little bit wonky. I do expect them to either lighten them up for future episodes or just get rid of them completely. It'll be one of the small, probably visual changes that will go on throughout the course of the season. And if not, they'll change your look by next season, so on and so forth. But ultimately, it was very well done. Matt Nix wrote the episode, so it was well written. It established every character. It gave us bits of background for every character. Everyone had their motivations. Everyone had their weaknesses, and everyone had someone to fight for, essentially. And I thought that was really, really, really cool. The things I really loved about it, though, were not only the Stan Lee cameo, yeah, because that was there. Like, holy crap, what's Stan Lee? I didn't know Stan Lee was in it until, unfortunately, comicbook.com spoiled it for a headline of an article. Because, that's what they do. They spoil things, you jerks. Although I just spoiled it too, but that's not the point. You've already been spoiled on lots of other stuff at this point, so you should know that going in. But anyway, Yeah, that, and then you had Eclipse get a phone call, and it was the old 90s X-Men theme song that played. So those two little Easter eggs not only further sold me on this show, but showed me that there is a care and a love that was put in to The Gifted. And I'm on board. I'm sold 100%. I'm in. I can't wait for next week. Holy crap, this is going to be good. You guys got to see this. And yeah, it might seem like I am super excited for this show. And I was super excited, but I didn't know how excited I was going to be until I watched it. I didn't know how excited I was going to be until I finished it. And when I finished it, oh yeah, like I will watch this again. I'm going to show my girlfriend. I want her to get involved because I need a reason to watch this on the bigger TV, especially earlier in the night when it airs. This is a show that shows you, for one, okay, so looking at Logan, looking at Deadpool, the way those properties were handled, this is, I want to say, almost a direct result of that, especially Deadpool. But it feels tonally, to an extent, tied into Logan. It is separate from the overall X-Men universe, but it still feels contained within. It definitely feels like it's on the track to kind of tie into Logan later on. You know, where are the X-Men? Where's the Brotherhood of Mutants? Who knows at this point? We don't know. But it's still definitely set, you know, in modern times. So we're 2017. Logan was set in 2029. So it could feel like that could be a thing. And they even said they want to get down to Mexico, which is where the family wanted to go. And that Eclipse is like, well, we know people down in Mexico who've got skills. Yeah, you see the Wolverine claws on my wall back there? Those kind of skills. You know what I'm talking about? That's actually a movie prop from Logan, by the way. Thank you, IMAX. But the point is that, yes, like I feel like that might have been some kind of tie-in, perhaps, right? I don't know when the year was, but who knows? Who knows? All I know is that this is good, and I'm hoping it can only get better. If Matt Nix is involved and he's developing it and he's writing a lot of it and he's supervising it, I have a feeling. Not only that, but Laura Schuler Donner is in it. She's been producing the X-Men movies since the beginning with Fox, also Richard Donner's wife. So clearly many decades being involved in superhero movies. Len Wiseman is also an executive producer. That, I guess, makes some sense. He produces now more than he directs. Fine with me. He also worked on Sleepy Hollow, so take that for what you will. But the key people involved here, Bryan Singer, Matt Nix, Laura Schuler Donner, really kind of sell this to me. And as a result of that, oh man, next Monday needs to hurry up and get here because I cannot wait to see what happens next. But I do want to know what you guys think about this. Did you see it? Did you like it? Am I overthinking it? Am I overhyped? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been 3 Buck Theater. If you guys haven't already, please thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, check back often for television reviews, movie reviews, and movie news and all that jazz. And I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day. Peace out.